Bruchim haboim. Welcome everyone. We're about to begin Be'ezras Hashem together on Daf Nud Aleph, Amud Aleph, 12 lines from the bottom. After the Gemara had made a digression from Birkas Hamazon and Zimun, the Gemara goes back to then talking about how a person, when he makes a bracha, Birkas Hamazon ala kois, various halachas to do with Birkas Hamazon ala kois. Says the Gemara, Om Rabbi Zeira, Om Rabbi Abahu, V'amri lo b'masnisa tana. Asara dvarim ne'emru b'kois shel bracha. There are 10 things that were stated in regards to a kois shel bracha, a kois that's used for Birkas Hamazon and also for Kiddush. Ton hadacha requires to be cleaned inside, v'shtifa, and also outside. Chai, the wine is undiluted before it is then put water inside of it. Umale, the cup is full. Itur, they're going to explain what that means, that it's crowned. V'ituf, we'll explain what that means as well. Noitloi b'shnei yodav, you take the kos and pick it up with 2 hands, showing its chavivus and importance. And then you pass it to the right side, to the right hand, which is the hand that is more important. V'nosna b'yamin, and hold it in the right hand while making Birkas Hamazon or Kiddush. Magbio min hakarka tefach. Keep it a tefach from the karka if you're reclining on the ground, or if you had a table, then it should be a tefach above the table, that everybody should see the kos. V'noisin einav boy, and the one who's mevarech, while holding that kos, he puts his eyes on that kos. Some say he looks actually inside the wine as well. V'yesh oimrim af mishagroi b'matana le'anshe beso. There are those that say he also passes it as a gift of importance to his wife to drink. Rabbi Yochanan, Anu ein lonu ela arba bilvad. Rabbi Yochanan says, now we only have 4, meaning to say that the 4 essential min hamuvchar lechatchila things of these 10 are as follows: hadacha, shtifa, chai, umole. That it should be clean in the inside and the outside. It should be undiluted wine initially, and it should be a full cup. Says the Gemara Tana, explaining these 10 things. Hadacha mi bifnim, v'shtifa mi bachutz. Hadacha is cleaning the kli, the kos, from the inside, and shtifa is cleaning it from the outside. Amar Rabbi Yochanan kol mevarech al kois mole, noisni lo nachala b'li mitzorim. A person who makes Kiddush or Birkas Hamazon on a kos that is mole, he inherits a nachala without any end. Bli mitzorim. Shenemar is in the pasuk. Umole Birkas Hashem yam v'daram yerosha. It's a play on the words. Filled up, making a bracha to Hashem, that will be a nachala without any mitzorim, because the yam is on the west, which has no civilization, since it goes all the way into the sea without any end. Yerosha will also be down in the Darom, where also it's too hot to then also live there, and therefore there's no end to the bounds, both on the west and on the south. Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Chanina, Oimer, Zoiche v'noichel shnei olamim, ha'olam hazeh v'ha'olam habo. Rabbi Yossi ben Chanina says this is a reference to the fact that a person will be zoiche to 2 oilamos in this world and the next, because after all, it could have written the pasuk Yam v'Daram Reish without the Yud and the K, the Yud in the beginning and the Hey at the end, and the Yud and the Hey refers to a reference that Hakadosh Baruch Hu created this world and the next world, this world with a Hey and the next world with a Yud. Ki beko Hashem sur olamim. The Hakadosh Baruch Hu was tsar, he was yotzer, both olamim, this world and the next world. Itur refers to crowning. What does that mean? Rav Yehuda ma'atero betalmidim. He would have his talmidim stand around him as he is making the Birkas Hamazon, or sit around him rather. Rav Chizda ma'ater lebenatli. Rav Chizda would refer to it as crowning it by putting cups around his kos. Rab Chanan ubechai. Rab Chanan says, and it should be undiluted wine when it's first put into the kos. Rav Sheish birkas haaretz. And then when you get to birkas haaretz, you add water to dilute it, showing the importance, the chashivus of Eretz Yisrael. Ituf, it means that a person's misatev. What does that mean? Rav Papa ma'atev v'yosif. He would then sit down with an atifa. Rav Asi Paris Sudra al Reishi, he would put a sudra on his head for the chashivus of the bracha. Noit loy b'shtei yadav, he would hold it by picking it up with two hands. Omra Chinino bar Papa Mikro, what's the verse that supports this? Su yidechem kodesh ubaruchu es Hashem. Lift up your hands in holiness and bless HaKadosh Baruch Hu. V'nasnu yim, he would then transfer it to his right hand, holding the kos in his right hand. Om Rav Chia bar Abba Rabbi Yochanan Rishonim Shalu Small Mahu Shetisayeh Liyamin. Can the left hand help support the right hand? Om Rav Ashi Hoyav Rishonim Iboilu V'lo Ifshit Luhu. Since the earlier ones asked the question but they didn't answer, thereby it remains a suffix. Anon Na'ave L'chumra. We go L'chumra, and therefore we say Al Tidr Mitzvah. A person should not be soimech his right hand with his left hand, and thereby, unless it's something that's a very large kos or something that's unusual, then he should not then support that right hand with his left hand, because it will look like a burden. He's holding to the kos as a burden, therefore he should only hold it with his right hand. Umagbio min akarka tefach. He should lift it, if it's them reclining on the ground, then lift it a tefach from the ground. But if he's sitting at a table, then it should be a tefach from the shulchan. Mikro, what's the verse that also is merames to this? Kois Yeshuas eso uveshem Hashem ekro. The kois of salvation I shall lift up, and in the name of Hashem I will call out. V'noisen einav bo, he should put his eyes on the kos, and like I said, some learn that he should actually put his eyes on the wine. Ki hechi de lo nesach daite mine, so that he should not be mesiach das, he shouldn't avert his attention from the bracha. Umeshagro la'anshe beisoi b'matana, he should send the kos shel bracha after he himself is toim and drinks from the kos to his wife as a way of chashivus, like a gift. Ki hechi to disbarech devisu, so that his wife will be blessed in terms of having children. Ula ikla lebei Rav Nachman. The Gemara tells us about the following ma'aseh. Ula visited the house of Rav Nachman. Korich rifta borich birkas mezoino. He ate bread and he blessed. He made a bracha birkas hamazon. Yahiv leikasa de birkasa le Rav Nachman. He gave his host Rav Nachman the kos shel bracha when he was done. Omar le Rav Nachman lishder mar kasa de birkasa l'Yalta. Pass the kos shel bracha to my wife Yalta. Omar le hochi am Rabbi Yochanan ein pri bitna shel isha mizbarech elam pri bitna shel ish. The woman's is not blessed, the fruit of her stomach, referring to children, is not blessed other than through her own husband. Shenemar says in the pasuk, uveirach pri bit necha, pri bit no lo nemar ela pri bit necha, and therefore it's through you, through your the husband's bet, and for him to then give her the bracha, but you don't have to pass the kos to her. Tanya mihochi, the Gemara tells us we have a support from a brayso. Rabbi Yonasan oimer minayin she'ein pri bitna shel isha mizbarech ela me pri bitnoi shel ish. Where do I know that a person, his wife, is blessed through his self and not directly through her? Says the Brayso Shneimar ubeirach pri bitnecha pri bitna lo nemar ela pri bitnecha. It doesn't say pri bitna, the fruit of her stomach, but rather the fruit of your stomach. And thereby she will be blessed with having children, offspring, through yourself. The Gemara comes back to the mice that we began with, Ada Hochi Shama Yalta. Meanwhile, Rav Nachman's wife Yalta overheard that Ula said you don't have to pass the koshel bracha to your wife. Kama bezihara, she got up angrily. Ve'osa lebechamra, she went to the wine cellar. V'tavra arba mea doni dechamra, and she broke 400 barrels of wine. Omar le Rav Nachman, nishade lemar kosed achrina. He said to Ula, let's send another coast, send a coast to my wife Yalta in order to appease her. Sholach la. Meanwhile, Rav Nachman sent to her the following message: Kohai navga de birkosahi. All of the wine that is in the barrel is still part of the koshel bracha. You want to appease her. Sholach le, but she sent back to him, nothing doing. Mimahadure mili umisatutruti klami. That means to say that the words are, your words are like those that of the people who go around town, and they are like lice that is in a worn out garment. Meaning to say, your words are meaningless. Omer of Asi, the Gemara goes on to say, going back to our subject of koshel bracha, ein masichin al koshel bracha. A person should not speak on the koshel bracha. And therefore, once my machronim is washed, one should be careful not to be mafsik with speech until after Birkas Hamazon. V'omer Rav Asi, ein mevarchin al koshel puronus. Rav Asi says, when it comes to making Birkas Hamazon, one should be careful not to make a bracha on a koshel puronus, on punishment. Ask the Gemara, my koshel puronus, what is this koshel puronus? Omer Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak kois sheni. It refers to what's called zugois. It shouldn't be a kos that is an even-numbered kos. In those days, there was a concern that a person who would then have one kos in the middle of his meal, for example, he should not then bench on a second kos, or if he had 3 kosos in the middle of the meal, he shouldn't then bench on the 4th kos. Tanya mihochi, hashoise kiflayim lo yivarich. A person who drinks kiflayim, so it should be an even number, he should not make a bracha on that even numbered kos. Shenema, it said in the pasuk, Hikon likras Elokecha Yisrael. Prepare yourself to greet Elokecha Yisrael with a kos, with words that are going to be noim and not with puronus. V'hailo misaken, these are not noim. These are not pleasant. The Gemara goes on to say, Omar v'abohu v'amar ilo b'masnisa tana, it was taught, ha'oichel, in regards to then making Birkas Hamazon, if a person is eating umahalech, and he's walking while he's eating, mevarech me'umad, he should stand in place, stop walking, and he should make Birkas Hamazon. Ukjehu oicha me'umad, if he is eating standing up, mevarke yushav, then he should make Birkas Hamazon sitting down. Ukjehu meisev v'oichel yoshem mevarech, if he's reclining while eating his meal, then he should sit up when he's saying Birkas Hamazon. V'hilchasa bekulhu yoishev mevarech. And the Gemara concludes that the halacha in all of these things, when making Birkas Hamazon, a bracha that's midi'araisa, alt kavod habracha, one should always sit down. Hadran aloch shloshe sha'achlu. The Mishnah begins also with Hilchos Seuda. Eilu dvarim shebein Beis Shammai uBeis Hillel b'Seuda. These are the following machlokesim that we have between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel in regards to the Seuda. Beis Shammai omim mevarech al hayoim v'achar kach mevarech al hayayin. UBeis Hillel omim mevarech al hayayin v'achar kach mevarech al hayoim. There are 2 brachos that we say when making Kiddush on Leil Shabbos or Leil Yom Tif. One is being Mekadesh the Yom, Asher Kiddishonu b'mitzvah Yisov. We make a bracha over there, and we conclude Baruch Atah Hashem Mekadesh HaShabbos if it's Shabbos. And we have a second bracha on the Yayin. So Beis Shammai is of the opinion that we first make a bracha on the Yom, and then we make a bracha on the Yayin. Whereas Beis Hillel says, no, the opposite. We first make a bracha on the Yayin, and then we make a bracha on the Yom. The Gemara will explain the machlokes. Beis Shammai oimrim noitlin liyodayim v'achar kach moizgin es hakois. UBeis Hillel oimrim moizgin es hakois There's also machlokes. They used to either have a kos of yayin before the meal, or like we have kiddush before the meal. So there's a machlokes whether you wash your hands before or after that kos. According to Beis Shammai, you first wash your hands, then you make kiddush, and then you make hamoitzi. According to Beis Hillel, you first make kiddush, then you wash your hands, and then you make hamoitzi. The Gemara explained that machlokes as well. Beis Shammai omi mekanech yada b'mapo umeinicha ala shulchan. Beis Hillel omi ala keses. Beis Shammai is of the opinion that when you wash your hands and you dry them on a towel, and then they used to have the towel next to them throughout the meal in order to then also clean their hands. So he said you would take that mappa, you would take that towel, and you would put it on the shulchan, you would leave it on the table next to you. Beis Hillel would say, no, you don't put it on the table, rather you put it next to you, on the cushion next to you. The Gemara will explain that machlokes. Beis Shammai oimrim mechabdin es habayis v'achar kach noitlin liyadayim. Ubeis Hillel oimrim noitlin liyadayim v'achar kach mechabdin es habayis. Beis Shammai is the opinion that you would first clean up next to you. If you're sitting on the ground, then on the floor, or if it's at a table, then the table. And then afterwards, wash your hands, mayim achroinim. Where Beis Hillel says you first wash mayim achroinim, and only afterwards you would be mechabdin es habayis. The Gemara explained the reason for the two of them as well. Beis Shammai omrim ner u'mazoin besamim v'havdola. Ubeis Hillel omrim ner u'besamim mazon v'havdola. On Motzei Shabbos and Motzei Yantif, when it comes to making havdalah, there's also a machlekes in the order. Beis Shammai says you first make a bracha on the eish, on the ner, and then mazon if it's going to be a meal that's carried into Motzei Shabbos or Motzei Yantif. Besam, then havdalah, whereas Beis Hillel says the order is slightly different. Ner ubesamim mazon vehavdalah. The Gemara explained that machlokes as well. Beis Shammai omrim shebora meor ha'esh, ubeis Hillel omrim borei meorei ha'esh. There's a machlokes. What is the nusach habracha? Beis Shammai says bora meor ha'esh, and Beis Hillel says borei meorei ha'esh. The Gemara explained that as well. Ein mevarchin lo yalaner v'lo habesamim shel goyim v'lo alaner v'lo habesamim shel mesim. Here there's no machlokes. Everybody agrees that you don't make a bracha not on the ner, not of besamim, not of goyim, not of mesim, and not of avodah zara. A person should not make a bracha on the ner of Motzei Shabbos and Motzei Yantiv at Havdalah until he gets hana, pleasure from that or. If a person made a full su'udah and then he finished and he left the place where he made that su'udah and then he realized he did not say Birkas HaMazon, machlokes. Beis Shammai yachzer lemakaymoy v'yivarich. Ubeis Hillel yivarich b'makom shenizkar. Beis Shammai says you go back to the place of the original su'udah and make Birkas HaMazon there. Whereas Beis Hillel says no, you make a Birkas HaMazon where you are sitting, where you're found now. Va'ad mosai mevarich, until when a person can still make that Birkas HaMazon. Ad kadesh yisakel hamazon shebemeyav, until the mazon that he ate is going to be misakel in his intestines. That means he digests the food, and the siman for that is he's no longer hungry. He becomes hungry again. It means he loses that bracha. Bo lehen yayin achar hamazon im ein sham ela oisoi kois. If he is going to drink wine after the meal, and there's only that one kos, he doesn't have more wine for Birkas HaMazon, so machlokes. Over here it says Beis Shammai oimi mevarich ala yayin v'achar כך mevarich ala mazon, uBeis Hillel oimi mevarich ala mazon v'achar כך mevarich ala yayin. According to Beis Shammai, you first make a bracha on the wine, and then afterwards, making Birkas HaMazon, you don't make a bracha on the yain, you don't have any more wine, so then you make just Birkas HaMazon alone, whereas Beis Hillel says no. You make Birkas HaMazon with the kois, and then you make the bracha on the yayin after the Birkas HaMazon. The Mishnah concludes, V'oinin omein achar Yisrael hamevarich. When a person hears a bracha from another Yisrael, even if he doesn't hear the complete bracha from beginning to end, he only hears the end of the bracha, so the Mishnah tells us he makes Amen, which is a haskama on that bracha, answering to that bracha after he hears the person making that bracha. Ve'ein oyinin amen acher kusi. However, when it comes to a kusi, he does not make a bracha, he doesn't make an amen after that bracha, he only hears the end of that bracha. Ashi yishma kol bracha kula, until he hears the entire bracha. The Gemara will explain why that's so as well. Let us begin the Gemara be'ezer Hashem. Tonu Rabbanon. The Gemara brings a brayso in regards to the first machlokis in our Mishnah. Dvarim shebein Beis Shammai uBeis Hillel b'Seuda. In regards to the various things that Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel argued about in a Seuda. Beis Shammai oimrim mevarech al hayoim ve'achar mevarech al hayayin. You first make a bracha on the yoim, kedushas hayoim in the kiddush, and then you make a bracha on the yayin in that order. Why? Shehayoim gorem leyayin sheyavoy, because it's only the day that causes the wine. In other words, it's the day that you're coming to make a kiddush for, and therefore the day takes precedence. Ukvar kiddush hayom v'adayin yayin loy bo, and also the day itself has already begun. You already accepted the day of Shabbos or Yontif before there is even kiddush, and even if you then mekab on yourself mi ba'od yom, but still, the moment you take the kois in your hand, it already is considered to be the kedushas hayoim. So that precedes the yayin. Ubeis Hillel oimri mevarich ala yayin v'achag mevarich ala yoim. Beis Hillel says the opposite. You first make a bracha on the yayin and then on the day. Why? Shahayayin gorem the kedusha shetei omer. Because without the yayin you would not make kiddush, and therefore you're making kiddush only because you have wine to make kiddush, or if you don't have wine, you would make it on pas. But nonetheless, that is the thing that you're making the kiddush on, and therefore that takes precedence. Dover acher, birkas hayayin tedira, ubirkas hayom eina tedira. The bracha on the yayin is tedira; it's much more often made, and therefore that takes precedence over the bracha on the yom, which is less often, less infrequent. We have a klal that we find that if a person, which you saw also in the fourth parak, that if a person has two things, then it was discussing if a person has musaf and mincha that he didn't daven either one of them, therefore which one should he daven first? The Gemara says this klal, this principle, he should daven mincha before musaf. Why? Because tadir v'sheino tadir koidem. Because since a person davens mincha much more frequently than he davens musaf, therefore it takes precedence over the musaf. So too over here, tadir v'sheino tadir koidem. The bracha on the yayin is much more often than the bracha on the yom. The halacha kedivrei Beis Hillel, and indeed the halacha is like Beis Hillel. Ask the Gemara, my davar acher, what is the davar acher that Beis Hillel had brought? He already said that the reason why you make a bracha on the yayin before you make a bracha on the yom is because hayayin garesh lekedusha shetei omer, and therefore that should be sufficient. Why did he add because of tadir? Says the Gemara, v'chitei mahasam tarti v'hachachada, because if you'll say over there's two reasons, and over here there's only one. In other words, Beis Shammai brought two reasons, and maybe you'll say that then carries greater weight than the one reason that Beis Hillel brought. So hachanami tarti ninu. Over here there's also two reasons. Birkas hayayin tedira, birkas hayom eina tedira. Tadir v'sheino tadir koidem. Since the bracha on the yayin is tadir, therefore it takes precedence over the birkas hayom, which is less frequent. V'halacha kedivrei Beis Hillel, and the halacha is like Beis Hillel. Ask the Gemara, why does the Bryce have to add that the halacha is like divrei Beis Hillel pshita? That's straightforward. The nafka baskol. A baskol went out and said, when it comes to a machlokis, Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, halacha Beis Hillel. Answers the Gemara, ibois ema koidim baskol. One answer is because it was prior to the baskol. Therefore, we have to say in the Brisa, halacha k'divrei beis Hillel. Alternatively, la'acher baskol. It is after the baskol. Why do we have to state? Therefore, halacha k'divrei beis Hillel. Answers the Gemara, Rabbi Yehoshua, because this Brisa is according to Rabbi Yehoshua. The Omar ein mashkichim bebaskol. We don't pay attention to a baskol when it comes to halacha.